Concentration. Concentration is a cornerstone of mindfulness practice. Your mindfulness will only be as robust as the capacity of your mind to be calm and stable. Without calmness, the mirror of mindfulness will have an agitated and choppy surface and will not be able to reflect things with any accuracy. Concentration can be practiced either hand in hand with mindfulness or separately. You can think of concentration as the capacity of the mind to sustain an unwavering attention on one object of observation. It is cultivated by attending to one thing, such as the breath, and just limiting one's focus to that. In Sanskrit, concentration is called samadhi, or one-pointedness. Samadhi is developed and deepened by continually bringing the attention back to the breath every time it wanders. When practicing strictly concentrative forms of meditation, we purposefully refrain from any efforts to inquire into areas such as where the mind went when it wandered off, or that the quality of the breath fluctuates. Our energy is directed solely towards experiencing this breath coming in, this breath going out, or some other single object of attention. With extended practice, the mind tends to become better and better at staying on the breath, or noticing even the earliest impulses to become distracted by something else, and either resisting its pull in the first place and staying on the breath, or quickly returning to it. A calmness develops with intense concentration practice that has a remarkably stable quality to it. It is steadfast, profound, hard to disturb, no matter what comes up. It's a great gift to oneself to be able periodically to cultivate samadhi over an extended period of time. This is most readily accomplished on long silent meditation retreats, when one can withdraw from the world à la Thoreau for this very purpose. The stability and calmness which come with one-pointed concentration practice form the foundation for the cultivation of mindfulness. Without some degree of samadhi, your mindfulness will not be very strong. You can only look deeply into something if you can sustain your looking without being constantly thrown off by distractions or by the agitation of your own mind. The deeper your concentration, the deeper the potential for mindfulness. The experience of deep samadhi is very pleasant. In attending to the breath with one-pointed concentration, everything else falls away, including thoughts, feelings, the outside world. Samadhi is characterized by absorption in stillness and undisturbed peacefulness. A taste of this stillness can be attractive, even intoxicating. One naturally finds oneself seeking this peacefulness and the simplicity of a state characterized by absorption and bliss. But concentration practice, however strong and satisfying, is incomplete without mindfulness to complement and deepen it. By itself, it resembles a state of withdrawal from the world. Its characteristic energy is closed rather than open, absorbed rather than available, trance-like rather than fully awake. What is missing is the energy of curiosity, inquiry, investigation, openness, availability, engagement with the full range of phenomena experienced by human beings. This is the domain of mindfulness practice, in which one-pointedness and the ability to bring calmness and stability of mind to the present moment are put in the service of looking deeply into and understanding the interconnectedness of a wide range of life experiences. Concentration can be of great value, but it can also be seriously limiting if you become seduced by the pleasant quality of this inner experience and come to see it as a refuge from life in an unpleasant and unsatisfactory world. You might be tempted to avoid the messiness of daily living for the tranquility of stillness and peacefulness. This, of course, would be an attachment to stillness, and like any strong attachment, it leads to delusion. It arrests development and short-circuits the cultivation of wisdom. Vision. It's virtually impossible, and senseless anyway, to commit yourself to a daily meditation practice without some view of why you are doing it, what its value might be in your life, a sense of why this might be your way and not just another tilting at imaginary windmills. In traditional societies, this vision was supplied and continually reinforced by the culture. If you were a Buddhist, you might practice because the whole culture valued meditation as the path to clarity, compassion, and Buddhahood, a path of wisdom leading to the eradication of suffering. But in the Western cultural mainstream, you will find precious little support for choosing such a personal path of discipline and constancy, especially such an unusual one involving effort but non-doing, energy but no tangible product. What's more, any superficial or romantic notions we might harbor of becoming a better person, more calm or more clear or more compassionate, don't endure for long when we face the turbulence of our lives, our minds, and our bodies, or even the prospect of getting up early in the morning when it's cold and dark to sit by yourself and be in the present moment. It's too easily put off, or seen as trivial, or of secondary importance, so it can always wait while you catch a little more sleep or at least stay warm in bed. If you hope to bring meditation into your life in any kind of long-term committed way, you will need a vision that is truly your own, one that is deep and tenacious and that lies close to the core of who you believe yourself to be, what you value in your life, and where you see yourself going. Only the strength of such a dynamic vision and the motivation from which it springs can possibly keep you on this path year in and year out, with a willingness to practice every day, and to bring mindfulness to bear on whatever is happening, to open to whatever is perceived, and to let it point to where the holding is and where the letting go and the growing need to happen. The vision we are speaking of has to be renewed every day, has to be right out front all the time, because mindfulness itself requires this level of awareness, of purpose, of intention. Otherwise, we might as well stay in bed. The practice itself has to become the daily embodiment of your vision and contain what you value most deeply. It doesn't mean trying to change or be different from how you are, calm when you're not feeling calm, or kind when you really feel angry. Rather, it is bearing in mind what is most important to you, so that it's not lost or betrayed in the heat and reactivity of a particular moment. If mindfulness is deeply important to you, then every moment is an opportunity to practice. For example, suppose angry feelings come up at some point in your day. If you find yourself feeling angry and expressing it, you will also find yourself monitoring that expression and its effects moment by moment. You may be in touch with its validity as a feeling state, with the antecedent causes of your strong feeling, and the way it's coming out in your body, gestures and stances, in your tone of voice, in your choice of words and arguments, as well as the impression it is making on others. There is much to be said for the conscious expression of anger, and it is well known medically and psychologically that suppressing anger in the sense of internalizing it is unhealthy, particularly if it becomes habitual. But it's also unhealthy to vent anger uncontrollably as a matter of habit and reaction, however justifiable. You can feel it cloud the mind. It breeds feelings of aggression and violence, even if the anger is in the service of righting a wrong or getting something important to happen. And thus it intrinsically warps what is, whether you are in the right or not. You can feel this even when you can't stop yourself sometimes. Mindfulness can put you in touch with the toxicity of the anger to yourself and to others. I always come away from it feeling that there's something inadequate about anger, even when I'm objectively on high ground. Its innate toxicity taints all it touches. If its energy can be transmuted to forcefulness and wisdom without the smoke and fire of self-absorption or self-righteousness, then its power multiplies, and so does its capacity to transform both the object of the anger and the source. So if you practice purposefully expanding the context of the anger, yours or someone else's, right in those very moments that it is arising and peaking, knowing that there must be something larger and more fundamental that you are forgetting in the heat of the emotion. Then you can touch an awareness inside yourself which is not attached to or invested in the anger fire. Awareness sees the anger. It knows the depth of the anger, and it is larger than the anger. It can therefore hold the anger the way a pot contains food. The pot of awareness helps us cradle the anger and see that it may be producing more harmful effects than beneficial ones, even if that is not our aim. In this way, it helps us cook the anger, digest the anger, so that we can use it effectively. And in changing from an automatic reacting to a conscious responding, perhaps move beyond it altogether. This and other options stem from a careful listening to the dictates of the whole situation. Our vision has to do with our values and with our personal blueprint for what is most important in life. It has to do with first principles. If you believe in love, do you manifest it or just talk a lot? If you believe in compassion, in non-harming, in kindness, in wisdom, in generosity, in calmness, in solitude, in non-doing, in being even-handed and clear, do you manifest these qualities in your daily life? This is the level of intentionality which is required to keep your meditation practice vital, so that it doesn't succumb to being purely a mechanical exercise driven only by the forces of habit or belief. In Walden, Thoreau cites a Chinese inscription on a bathtub. Renew thyself completely each day. Do it again and again and forever again. Try asking yourself why you meditate or why you want to meditate. Don't believe your first answers. Just write down a list of whatever comes to mind. Continue asking yourself. Also inquire about your values, about what you honor most in life. Make a list of what's really important to you. Ask yourself, what is my vision, my map for where I am and where I'm going? Does this vision reflect my true values and intentions? Am I remembering to embody those values? Do I practice my intentions? How am I now in my job, in my family, in my relationships, with myself? How do I want to be? How might I live my vision, my values? How do I relate to suffering, both my own and others? Meditation develops full human beings. I'm told that in Pali, the original language of the Buddha, there's no one word corresponding to our word meditation, even though meditation might be said to have evolved to an extraordinary degree in ancient Indian culture. One word that is frequently used is bhavana. Bhavana translates as development through mental training. To me, this strikes the mark. Meditation really is about human development. It's a natural extension of cutting teeth, growing an adult-sized body, working and making things happen in the world, raising a family, going into debt of one kind or another, even if only to yourself through bargains that may imprison the soul, and realizing that you too will grow old and die. At some time or another, you are practically forced to sit down and contemplate your life and question who you are and where the meaning lies in the journey of life, your life. The old fairy tales, we are told by their modern interpreters, Bruno Bettelheim, Robert Bly, Joseph Campbell, and Clarissa Pinkola Estes, are ancient maps, offering their own guidance for the development of full human beings. The wisdom of these tales comes down to our day from a time before writing, having been told in twilight and darkness around fires for thousands of years. While they are entertaining and engaging stories in their own right, they are so in large part because they are emblematical of the dramas we encounter as we seek wholeness, happiness, and peace. The kings and queens, princes and princesses, dwarfs and witches are not merely personages out there. We know them intuitively as aspects of our own psyches, strands of our own being, groping toward fulfillment. We house the ogre and the witch, and they have to be faced and honored, or they will consume us, eat us up. Fairy tales are ancient guidance containing a wisdom distilled through millennia of telling for our instinctual survival, growth, and integration in the face of inner and outer demons and dragons, dark woods, and wastelands. These stories remind us that it is worth seeking the altar where our own fragmented and isolated being strands can find each other and marry, bringing new levels of harmony and understanding to our lives, to the point where we might actually live happily ever after, which really means in the timeless here and now. These stories are wise, ancient, surprisingly sophisticated blueprints for our full development as human beings. One recurrent theme in the fairy stories is that of a young child, usually a prince or a princess, who loses his or her golden ball. Whether we ourselves are male or female, old or young, we each contain both prince and princess among countless other figures. And there was a time we each radiated with the golden innocence and infinite promise carried by youth. And we still carry that golden radiance, or can recover it, if we take care not to let our development arrest. Bly points out that between losing the golden ball, which seems to happen first around age 8, and taking any steps to recover it, or even to recognize that it has gotten away from us, might take 30 or 40 years, whereas in fairy tales, which take place once upon a time, and therefore outside of ordinary time, usually it takes only a day or two. But in both instances, a bargain needs to be made first, a bargain with our own suppressed shadow energies, symbolized by a frog or perhaps by a hairy wild man who resides under the pond in the forest, as in Iron John. Before that bargain can be made, you have to know that these creatures are there, prince and princess, frog, wild man, or wild woman. Conversing with those aspects of our psyches that we instinctively turn away from into unconsciousness is a prerequisite, and that may be plenty scary, because the feeling state that arises is the one that comes when we go down into dark, unknown, mysterious places. The form of Buddhism that took root and flowered in Tibet from the 8th century until our day developed perhaps the most refined artistic expression of these terrifying aspects of the human psyche. Many Tibetan statues and paintings are of grotesque demonic beings, all respected members of the pantheon of honored deities. Keep in mind that these deities are not gods in the usual sense. Rather, they represent different mind states, each with its own kind of divine energy which has to be faced, honored, and worked with if we are to grow and develop our true potential as full human beings, whether men or women. These wrathful creatures are not seen as bad, even though their appearance is frightening and repulsive, with their necklaces of skulls and grotesque grimaces. Their terrible outward appearance is actually a disguise adopted by deities embodying wisdom and compassion to help us attain greater understanding and kindness towards ourselves and toward others, who, it is understood, are not fundamentally different from ourselves. In Buddhism, the vehicle for this work of inner development is meditation. Even in the fairy tales, to get in touch with the wild man under the pond requires bucketing out the pond. Something Bly points out takes repetitive inner work over a long time. There's nothing glamorous about bucketing out a pond or working at a hot forge or in the sweltering vineyards day after day, year after year. But repetitive inner work of this kind, coming to know the forces of one's own psyche, is its own initiation. It's a tempering process. Usually heat is involved. It takes discipline to tolerate the heat, to persevere. But what comes of keeping at it is mastery and non-naivete, attainment of an inward order unattainable without the discipline, the heat, the descent into our darkness and fear. Even the interior defeats we suffer serve us in this tempering. This is what Jungians call soul work, the development of depth of character through knowing something of the tortuous, labyrinthine depths and expanses of our own minds. The heat tempers, rearranging the very atoms of our psychic being, and most likely of our bodies as well. The beauty of meditative work is that it is possible to rely on the practice itself to guide us through the maze. It keeps us on the path, even in the darkest of moments, facing the most terrifying of our own mind states and external circumstances. It reminds us of our options. It's a guide to human development, a roadmap to our radiant selves, not to the goal of a childhood innocence already past, but to that of a fully developed adult. But for meditation to do its work, we have to be willing to do ours. We must be willing to encounter darkness and despair when they come up, and face them over and over again if need be, without running away or numbing ourselves in the thousands of ways we conjure up to avoid the unavoidable. Try being open to the prince and the princess, the king and the queen, the giant and the witch, the wild man and the wild woman, the dwarf and the crone, and the warrior, the healer, and the trickster within yourself. When you meditate, put the welcome mat out to all of them. Try sitting like a king or a queen, or a warrior or a sage. In times of great turmoil or darkness, use your breath as the string which will guide you through the labyrinth. Keep mindfulness alive even in the darkest moments, reminding yourself that the awareness is not part of the darkness or of the pain. It holds the pain and knows it, so it has to be more fundamental and closer to what is healthy and strong and golden within you. Practice as a path. From the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, Inferno. In the middle of this road we call our life, I found myself in a dark wood with no clear path through. The journey metaphor is used in all cultures to describe life and the quest for meaning. In the East, the word Tao, Chinese for way or path, carries this meaning. In Buddhism, meditation practice is usually spoken of as a path, the path of mindfulness, the path of right understanding, the path of the wheel of truth, or Dharma. Tao and Dharma also mean the way things are, the law that governs all of existence and non-existence. All events, whether we see them on the surface as good or bad, are fundamentally in harmony with the Tao. It is our job to learn to perceive this underlying harmony and to live and make decisions in accord with it. Yet frequently it is not exactly clear what the right way is, which leaves plenty of room for free will and principled action, and also for tension and controversy, to say nothing of getting lost entirely. When we practice meditation, we are really acknowledging that in this moment we are on the road of life. The path unfolds in this moment and in every moment while we are alive. Meditation is more rightly thought of as a way than as a technique. It's a way of being, a way of living, a way of listening, a way of walking along the path of life and being in harmony with things as they are. This means in part acknowledging that sometimes, very often at very crucial times, you really have no idea where you're going or even where the path lies. At the same time, you can very well know something about where you are now, even if it is knowing that you are lost, confused, enraged, or without hope. On the other hand, it often happens that we can become trapped into believing too strongly that we do know where we are going, especially if we are driven by self-serving ambition and we want certain things very badly. There's a blindness that comes from self-furthering agendas that leaves us thinking we know when actually we don't know as much as we think. The Water of Life, a fairy tale in the Grimm's Brothers collection, tells of the customary trio of brothers, princes all. The two oldest brothers are greedy and selfish. The youngest is kind and caring. Their father, the king, is dying. An old man who mysteriously appears in the palace garden inquires after their grief, and when he hears the problem, suggests that a cure might be had in the water of life. If the king drinks of it, he will become well again, but it is hard to find. First, the oldest brother obtains permission to go forth to seek the water of life for his father, harboring the secret hope of currying his favor and becoming king himself. Almost as soon as he sets out on his horse, he encounters a dwarf beside the road, who stops him and asks him where he's going so fast. In his hurry, the brother treats the dwarf with scorn and condescension, ordering him out of the way. The presumption here is that the prince knows the way, just because he knows what he's looking for. Not so. But this brother is unable to rein in his arrogance and his ignorance of the many ways things might unfold or open up in life. Of course, the dwarf in fairy tales is no outer person either, but symbolic of the higher powers of the soul. In this case, the selfish brother is unable to approach his own inner power and feeling self with kindness and wisdom. Because of his arrogance, the dwarf arranges for his path to enter an ever-narrowing ravine, in which he eventually finds himself unable to go forward, unable to go back, and unable to turn around. In a word, stuck. And there he stays while the story continues. When the first brother doesn't return, the second brother goes forth to try his luck, meets the dwarf, treats him in the same fashion, and winds up stuck just like the first brother. Since they are different parts of the same person, you might say some people never learn. After some time, the third brother sets off to bring back the water of life. He too encounters the dwarf, who asks where he's going in such a hurry. However, unlike his brothers, he stops, dismounts, and tells the dwarf of his father's grave illness and of seeking the water of life, admitting that he has no idea where to look or in what direction to go. At that, of course, the dwarf says, "Oh, I know where that is to be found." And he proceeds to tell him where it is and how he is to go about getting it, which is quite complicated. This brother listens carefully and remembers what he is told. This richly crafted tale takes many turns in its unfolding, which I will leave to the interested person to explore. The point here is simply that it is useful at times to admit to yourself that you don't know your way and to be open to help from unexpected places. Doing this makes available to you inner and outer energies and allies that arise out of your own soulfulness and selflessness. Of course, the selfish brothers are also internal figures of the psyche. The message is that getting caught up in the normal human tendencies of self-cherishing and arrogance and ignoring the larger order of things will ultimately lead to an impasse in your life in which you are unable to go forward, unable to go back, and unable to turn around. The story says you will never find the water of life with such an attitude, and that you will remain stuck, potentially forever. The work of mindfulness demands honoring and heeding our own dwarf energy, rather than rushing headlong into things with a mind that is sorely out of touch with large parts of ourself, a mind driven by narrow ambition and ideas of personal gain. The story says we can only fare well if we proceed with an awareness of the way things are, including a willingness to admit not knowing where we are going. The youngest brother has a long road to travel in the story before it can be said that he fully understands the way things are, with his brothers, for instance. He endures painful lessons in treachery and betrayal, and he pays a high price for his naivete before finally owning the full range of his energy and wisdom. These are symbolized by his ultimately riding straight down the middle of a road paved in gold and marrying the princess, I haven't told you about her, and becoming king, a fully developed man, not of his father's kingdom, but of his own. Try seeing your own life this very day as a journey and as an adventure. Where are you going? What are you seeking? Where are you now? What stage of the journey have you come to? If your life were a book, what would you call it today? What would you entitle the chapter you are in right now? Are you stuck here in certain ways? Can you be fully open to all the energies at your disposal at this point? Note that this journey is uniquely yours, no one else's. So the path has to be your own. You cannot imitate somebody else's journey and still be true to yourself. Are you prepared to honor your uniqueness in this way? Can you see a commitment to the meditation practice as an intimate part of this way of being? Can you commit to lighting your path with mindfulness and awareness? Can you see ways in which you could easily get stuck or have in the past? Part 2. The Heart of Practice. Quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes: "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." Part 2 explores some basic aspects of formal meditation practice. Formal practice refers to specific periods of time in which we purposefully stop other activity and engage in particular methods of cultivating mindfulness and concentration. Sitting meditation. What's so special about sitting? Nothing when we speak of the way we ordinarily sit. It's just one more convenient way our bodies take a load off our feet. But sitting is very special when it comes to meditation. You can know that superficially easily enough from the outside. For instance, you might not know that a person is meditating when you see him standing or lying down or walking, but you know it immediately when he's sitting, especially if he's sitting on the floor. From any angle, the posture itself embodies wakefulness, even when the eyes are closed and the face is serene and peaceful. It is mountain-like in its majesty and solidity. There's a stability to it which speaks volumes, broadcasting inwardly and outwardly. The moment the person dozes off, all these qualities evaporate. The mind collapses inwardly, the body visibly. Sitting meditation involves sitting in an upright, dignified posture, often for extended periods of time. While it is relatively easy to assume an erect posture, that's just the beginning of this challenging process of continual unfolding. You may readily enough park your body, but there's still the question of what the mind is up to. Sitting meditation is not a matter of taking on a special body posture, however powerful that may be. It is adopting a particular posture toward the mind. It is mind sitting. Once you are sitting, there are many ways to approach the present moment. All involve paying attention on purpose, non-judgmentally. What varies is what you attend to and how. It's best to keep things simple and start with your breathing, feeling it as it moves in and out. Ultimately, you can expand your awareness to observe all the comings and goings, the gyrations and machinations of your own thoughts and feelings, perceptions and impulses, body and mind. But it may take some time for concentration and mindfulness to become strong enough to hold such a wide range of objects in awareness without getting lost in them, or attached to particular ones, or simply overwhelmed. For most of us, it takes years and depends a good deal on your motivation and the intensity of your practice. So at the beginning, you might want to stay with the breath or use it as an anchor to bring you back when you are carried away. Try it for a few years and see what happens. Try setting aside some time every day for just being. 5 minutes would be fine, or 10 or 20 or 30 if you want to venture that far. Sit down and watch the moments unfold, with no agenda other than to be fully present. Use the breath as an anchor to tether your attention to the present moment. Your thinking mind will drift here and there, depending on the currents and winds moving in the mind, until, at some point, the anchor line grows taut and brings you back. This may happen a lot. Bring your attention back to the breath in all its vividness every time it wanders. Keep the posture erect, but not stiff. Think of yourself as a mountain. Taking your seat. It helps to come to the cushion or to the chair with a definite sense of taking your seat. Sitting meditation is different from just sitting down casually somewhere. There is energy in the statement the sitting makes as you take your seat, both in the choice of spot and in mindfulness filling your body. The posture embodies a stand, as in taking a stand, even though you are sitting. There's a strong sense of honoring place and placement of body and mind and moment. We take our seat to meditate, keeping all this in mind, yet without any investment in location or posture. There may indeed be definite so-called power spots indoors and out, yet with this attitude of taking a stand, you can sit anywhere, in any posture, and be at home. When your mind and body collaborate in holding body, time, place, and posture in awareness and remain unattached to having it have to be a certain way, then and only then are you truly sitting. Dignity. When we describe the sitting posture, the word that feels the most appropriate is dignity. Sitting down to meditate, our posture talks to us. It makes its own statement. You might say the posture itself is the meditation. If we slump, it reflects low energy, passivity, a lack of clarity. If we sit ramrod straight, we're tense, making too much of an effort, trying too hard. When I use the word dignity in teaching situations, as in sit in a way that embodies dignity, everybody immediately adjusts their posture to sit up straighter, but they don't stiffen. Faces relax, shoulders drop, head, neck, and back come into easy alignment. The spine rises out of the pelvis with energy. Sometimes people tend to sit forward, away from the backs of their chairs, more autonomously. Everybody seems to instantly know that inner feeling of dignity and how to embody it. Perhaps we just need little reminders from time to time that we are already dignified, deserving, worthy. So when we take our seat in meditation and remind ourselves to sit with dignity, we are coming back to our original worthiness. That in itself is quite a statement. You can bet our inside will be listening. Are we ready to listen too? Are we ready to listen to the currents of direct experience in this moment, and this one, and this? Posture. When you sit with strong intentionality, the body itself makes a statement of deep conviction and commitment in its carriage. These radiate inward and outward. A dignified sitting posture is itself an affirmation of freedom and of life's harmony, beauty, and richness. Sometimes you feel in touch with it, other times you may not. Even when you feel depressed, burdened, confused, sitting can affirm the strength and value of this life lived now. If you can muster the patience to sustain your sitting for even a brief time, it can bring you in touch with the very core of your being, that domain which is beyond up or down, free or burdened, clear-sighted or confused. This core is akin to awareness itself. It doesn't fluctuate with mental state or life circumstances. It is mirror-like, impartially reflecting what comes before it. This includes a deep knowing that whatever is present, whatever has happened to shake your life or overwhelm you, will of itself inevitably change, and for this reason alone bears simply holding in the mirror of the present moment, watching it, embracing its presence, riding its waves of unfolding just as you ride the waves of your own breathing, and having faith that you will sooner or later find a way to act, to come to terms, to move through and beyond. Not by trying so much as by watching, by letting things be and feeling them fully, moment by moment. Mindful sitting meditation is not an attempt to escape from problems or difficulties into some cut-off, quote, meditative state of absorption or denial. On the contrary, it is a willingness to go nose to nose with pain, confusion, and loss, if that is what is dominating the present moment, and to stay with the observing over a sustained period of time beyond thinking. You seek understanding simply through bearing the situation in mind, along with your breath, as you maintain the sitting posture. So when we practice sitting meditation, first and foremost it means sitting in such a way that your body affirms, radiates, broadcasts an attitude of presence, that you are committed to acknowledging and accepting whatever comes up in any moment. This orientation is one of non-attachment and unwavering stability, like a clear mirror, only reflecting, itself empty, receptive, open. This attitude is contained in the posture, in the very way you choose to sit. The posture embodies the attitude. This is why many people find the image of a mountain helpful in deepening concentration and mindfulness in the sitting practice. Invoking qualities of elevation, massiveness, majesty, unmovingness, rootedness helps bring these qualities directly into posture and attitude. It's important to invite these qualities into your meditation all the time, practicing over and over again, embodying dignity, stillness, and unwavering equanimity in the face of any mind state which presents itself, especially when you're not in a grave state of distress or turmoil, can provide a solid, reliable foundation for maintaining mindfulness and equanimity even in periods of extreme stress and emotional turmoil. But only if you practice, practice, practice. Although it is tempting to do so, you can't just think that you understand how to be mindful and save using it for only those moments when the big events hit. They contain so much power they will overwhelm you instantly, along with all your romantic ideas about equanimity and knowing how to be mindful. Meditation practice is the slow, disciplined work of digging trenches, of working in the vineyards, of bucketing out a pond. It is the work of moments and the work of a lifetime, all wrapped into one. What to do with your hands. Various subtle energy pathways in the body have been mapped out, understood, and used in particular ways in the yogic and meditative traditions for millennia. We intuitively know that all our body postures make their own unique statements, which radiate inwardly as well as outwardly. Nowadays, this goes by the term body language. We can use that language to read how other people feel about themselves, because people are continuously broadcasting such information for anyone with a sensitive receiver to pick up. But in this case, we are speaking of the value of becoming sensitive to the language of one's own body. That awareness can catalyze dramatic inner growth and transformation. In the yogic traditions, this field of knowledge concerns certain positions of the body, known as mudras. In a way, all postures are mudras. Each makes a particular statement and has an energy associated with it. But mudras are usually referencing something more subtle than the posture of the entire body. Their focus is primarily on the positioning of the hands and feet. If you go to a museum and carefully observe the Buddhist paintings and statues, you will quickly notice that in the hundreds of different depictions of meditation, whether sitting, standing, or lying down, the hands are in a range of different positions. In the case of sitting meditation, sometimes the hands are on the knees, palms down. Sometimes one or both palms are up. Sometimes one or more fingers of one hand are touching the ground, while the other hand is raised up. Sometimes the hands are together in the lap, with the fingers of one hand lying atop the fingers of the other, the thumb tips gently touching, as if circling an invisible egg to form what is called the cosmic mudra. Sometimes the fingers and palms are placed together over the heart in the traditional posture of Christian prayer. This same posture in Oriental greeting signifies a bow in recognition of the divinity within the other person. These hand mudras all embody different energies, which you can experiment with yourself in meditation. Try sitting with your hands palms down on your knees. Notice the quality of self-containment here. To me, this posture speaks of not looking for anything more, but simply digesting what is. If you then turn both palms up, being mindful as you do it, you may note a change in energy in the body. To me, sitting this way embodies receptivity and openness to what is above, to the energy of the heavens. The Chinese say, as above, so below. Sometimes I feel a strong impulse to open to energy from above. It can be quite helpful at times, especially in periods of turmoil or confusion, to emphasize receptivity in your sitting practice. This can be done simply by opening your palms to the heavens. It's not that you are actively looking for something magically to help you. Rather, you are making yourself available to higher insights, priming a willingness in yourself to resonate with energies we usually think of as elevated, divine, celestial, cosmic, universal, of a higher order and wisdom. All our hand postures are mudras in that they are associated with subtle or not so subtle energies. Take the energy of the fist, for instance. When we get angry, our hands tend to close into fists. Some people unknowingly practice this mudra a lot in their lives. It waters the seeds of anger and violence within you every time you do it, and they respond by sprouting and growing stronger. The next time you find yourself making fists out of anger, try bringing mindfulness to the inner attitude embodied in a fist. Feel the tension, the hatred, the anger, the aggression, and the fear which it contains. Then, in the midst of your anger, as an experiment, if the person you are angry at is present, try opening your fists and placing the palms together over your heart in the prayer position right in front of him. Of course, he won't have the slightest idea what you're doing. Notice what happens to the anger and hurt as you hold this position for even a few moments. I find it virtually impossible to sustain my anger when I do this. It's not that the anger may not be justified. It's just that all sorts of other feelings come into play which frame the anger energy and tame it. Feelings like sympathy and compassion for the other person, and perhaps a greater understanding of the dance we are both in, the dance of one thing inevitably leading to another. Try being aware of subtle emotional qualities you may be embodying at various times of the day, as well as during your sitting practice. Pay particular attention to your hands. Does their position make a difference? See if you don't become more mindful by becoming more bodyful. As you practice being more in touch with your hands in sitting meditation, see if this doesn't have an influence on the way you touch. Everything from opening a door to making love involves touch. It's possible to open a door so mindlessly that your hand doesn't know what your body's doing and you hit yourself in the head with it. Imagine the challenge of touching another person without automaticity, with no gaining idea, just presence and caring. Coming out of meditation. The moments towards the end of a period of formal meditation have their own tricky topology. Mindfulness can become lax with the anticipation of finishing. How you handle this is important. It's precisely such transitions that challenge us to deepen our mindfulness and extend its range. Toward the end of a period of formal practice, if you're not particularly attentive, before you know it, you'll be off doing something else with no awareness whatsoever of how the meditation came to an end. The transition will be a blur at best. You can bring mindfulness to this process by being in touch with the thoughts and impulses which tell you it's time to stop. Whether you've been still for an hour or for 3 minutes, a powerful feeling all of a sudden may say, "This is enough," or you look at your watch and it's the time you said you would quit. In your meditation practice, especially when you're not using a tape for guidance, see if you can detect the very first impulse to quit and any others that may follow, growing in strength. As you recognize each impulse, breathe with it for a few moments and ask yourself, who has had enough? Try looking into what is behind the impulse. Is it fatigue, boredom, pain, impatience, or is it just time to stop? Whatever the case, rather than automatically leaping up or moving on, try lingering with whatever arises out of this inquiry, breathing with it for a few moments or even longer, and allowing the moving out of your meditation posture to be as much an object of moment-to-moment awareness as any other moment in the meditation. Practicing like this can increase mindfulness in many different situations that involve closing or ending something and moving on to something else. It can be as simple and brief as being in touch with closing a door, or as complicated and painful as when an era in your life comes to an end. So much automaticity can creep into closing a door because it's so unimportant in the overall scheme of things, unless the baby is sleeping. But it is precisely because it is relatively unimportant that closing the door mindfully activates and deepens our sensitivity, our capacity to be in touch with all our moments, and smooths out some of the deeper wrinkles of our habitual unconsciousness. Curiously, just as much, if not more, mindless behavior can creep into our most momentous closures and life transitions, including our own aging and our own dying. Here, too, mindfulness can have healing effects. We may be so defended against feeling the full impact of our emotional pain, whether it be grief, sadness, shame, disappointment, anger, or for that matter even joy or satisfaction, that we unconsciously escape into a cloud of numbness in which we do not permit ourselves to feel anything at all or know what we are feeling. Like a fog, unawareness blankets precisely those moments that might be the most profound occasions to see impermanence at work, to be in touch with the universal and impersonal aspects of being and becoming that underlie our personalized emotional investments, to touch the mystery of being small, fragile, and temporary, and to come to peace with the absolute inevitability of change. In the Zen tradition, group sitting meditations are sometimes ended with a loud wooden clacker which is whacked together forcefully. No romantic lingering with the sound of a soft bell to ease the end of a sitting. The message here is to cut. Time to move on now. If you're daydreaming, even slightly, when the clacker goes off, The sound will startle you and thereby point out how little you were actually present in that moment. It reminds you that the sitting is already over and now we are in a new moment, to be faced anew. In other traditions, the gentle ring of a bell is used to mark the end of group sittings. The softness of the bell brings you back too and also points out whether your mind was on the loose at the moment it rang. So when it comes to ending a sitting, soft and gentle is good, and hard and loud is good. Both remind us to be fully present in moments of transition, that all endings are also beginnings, that what is most important, in the words of the Diamond Sutra, is to develop a mind that clings to nothing. Only then will we be able to see things as they actually are and respond with the full range of our emotional capacity and our wisdom. From the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, the master sees things as they are without trying to control them. She lets them go their own way and resides at the center of the circle. Try bringing awareness to how you end your meditations. Whether they are lying down, sitting, standing, or walking, zero in on who ends it, how it ends, when it ends, and why. Don't judge it or yourself in any way. Just observe and stay in touch with the transition from one thing to the next. How long to practice? Question: Dr. Kabat-Zinn, how long should I meditate? Answer: how should I know? It keeps coming up, this question of how long to meditate. We felt from the beginning of our work using meditation with patients in the hospital that it would be important for them to be exposed right from the start to relatively extended periods of practice. Since we believed strongly in the principle that if you ask a lot of people or ask them to ask a lot of themselves, then you will get a lot, whereas if you ask only a little, the most you are likely to get is a little. We went with 45 minutes as the basic required practice time at home every day. 45 minutes seemed long enough to settle into stillness and sustained attending from moment to moment, and perhaps to experience at least tastes of a deepening relaxation and sense of well-being. It also seemed long enough to allow for ample opportunity to engage the more challenging mind states that we ordinarily hope to avoid because they take over our lives and severely tax, when they don't overwhelm completely, our ability to remain calm and mindful. The usual suspects, of course, are boredom, impatience, frustration, fear, anxiety, which would include worrying about all the things you might be accomplishing if you weren't wasting time meditating, fantasy, memories, anger, pain, fatigue, and grief. It turned out to be a good intuition. Most of the people coming through our clinic have willingly made the almost never easy adjustments in the day-to-day conduct of their lives to practice daily for 45 minutes at a stretch, at least over a period of 8 weeks. If your life is in perpetual crisis, or you find yourself immersed in social and economic chaos, you may have trouble finding the psychic energy to meditate for extended periods, even if you have the time. Something always seems to come up to get in the way, especially if you're thinking you have to have a 45-minute clearing in your day even to get started. For those seeking balance in their lives, a certain flexibility of approach is not only helpful, it is essential. It's important to know that meditation has little to do with clock time. 5 minutes of formal practice can be as profound or more so than 45 minutes. The sincerity of your effort matters far more than elapsed time, since we are really talking about stepping out of minutes and hours and into moments which are truly dimensionless and therefore infinite. So if you have some motivation to practice even a little, that's what's important. Mindfulness needs to be kindled and nurtured, protected from the winds of a busy life or a restless and tormented mind, just as a small flame needs to be sheltered from strong gusts of air. If you can only manage 5 minutes or even 1 minute of mindfulness at first, that's truly wonderful. It means you have already remembered the value of stopping. of shifting even momentarily from doing to being. If you think about it for a moment, few of us, no matter what we do or what situation we find ourselves in, would be unable to free up 1 or 2 15-minute blocks of time out of 24 hours, and if not 15, then 10 or 5. Recall that in a line 6 inches long, there are an infinite number of points, and in a line 1 inch long, there are just as many. Well then, how many moments are there in 15 minutes, or 5, or 10, or 45? It turns out we have plenty of time if we are willing to hold any moments at all in awareness. Forming the intention to practice and then seizing a moment, any moment, and encouraging it fully in your inward and outward posture lies at the core of mindfulness. Long and short periods of practice are both good, but long may never flourish if your frustration and the obstacles in your path loom too large. Try sitting for varying lengths of clock time. See how it affects your practice. Does your concentration lapse as you sit longer? Do you get hung up in how much longer you have to be present? Does impatience come up at some point? Does the mind get reactive or obsessive? Is there restlessness, anxiety, boredom, time pressure, sleepiness, dullness? If you are new to meditation, are you finding yourself saying, "This is stupid," or "Am I doing it right?" or "Is this all I'm supposed to be feeling?" Do these feelings start right away, or do they only come up after a while? Can you see them as mind states? Can you observe them without judging them or yourself for even brief periods? If you put the welcome mat out for them and investigate their qualities and let them be, you may learn a lot about what is strong and unwavering in yourself, and what is strong in you may become even stronger as you nourish inner stability and calmness. A "what is my way" meditation. The people of Maine are known for saying, quote, "You can't get there from here," when asked for directions. In terms of life directions, perhaps it's truer to say, "You can only get there if you are fully here." How many of us are aware of this little twist in the fabric of fate? How would we know what our way is if we could have it? Would getting our way solve anything at all? Or would it only make more of a mess of our lives were it possible to realize our wishes on impulse out of our so frequently mindless states of mind? The truly interesting question here is, what exactly is my way? Meaning my way with a capital W. Rarely do we contemplate our life with this degree of probing. How frequently do we linger in such basic questions as, who am I? Where am I going? What path am I on? Is this the right direction for me? If I could choose a path now, in which direction would I head? What is my yearning, my path? What do I truly love? Contemplating the question, what is my way, is an excellent element to inject into our meditation practice. We don't have to come up with answers, nor think that there has to be one particular answer. The intention here is to remain open to not knowing, perhaps allowing yourself to come to the point of admitting, "I don't know," and then experimenting with relaxing a bit into this not knowing instead of condemning yourself for it. After all, in this moment, it may be an accurate statement of how things are for you. This is a good way to find the path that lies closest to your heart. After all, the journey is one of heroic proportions, but so much more so if enlivened by wakefulness and a commitment to adventurous inquiry. Can we be in touch with our own life unfolding? Can we rise to the occasion of our own humanity? Can we take on the challenges we meet, even seeking them out to test ourselves, to grow, to act in a principled way, to be true to ourselves, to find our own way, and ultimately not only to have it, but more importantly, live it?